guests. Without guests, there'd be little point in having a hotel. And the guest list is one of the most important assets a property has. Being able to capture good information on the guests, good history on the guests, guest preferences, and being able to deliver back a customized service, all very important things for a guest. So here's an example of a sample guest record. Here's Malcolm Amici. This is the name and address, or what we'd call the basic contact information. You can see some of the fields are blue in my configuration. I've turned these fields on to be blue, which says these are mandatory fields when I'm adding a new guest. And you can configure which fields you want to be blue. So it's keyed by name, last name, and first name. I've got a couple of fields here for guest segmentation. In my example, guest geographic, guest class. You can call these what you want. These might be, these can be anything, any way that where you segment your guests. Okay, it won't be source of business because we have that separately, but the way you segment your guests. So here's an example here of a guest geographic. Where do they live? Are they local? Are they within the state? Are they within the country? And then we have a class, sort of what flavor of guest are these? Are they corporate? Are they an individual? Is this part of a group? How do they get taxed? A basic address information, postal address, street address, some phone, some email address information and whatnot. And then an indication as to whether or not it's okay to use this email address. This is very important if you're doing email marketing. You have to have a flag. If someone opts out of the email, you have to be able to turn it off. So you have the information, but you're not supposed to use it anymore. This stops you from being labeled as a spammer. That's just the first of many pages. The profile page now has more information, and this will be extra information you'll get as your relationship with the guest develops. So here I've got a spouse name, some birthdays and anniversaries. I've got a set of optional fields here. We can call these anything we want. For instance, I've got a VIP level, special needs with a drop down in here. What kind of room they might like. Maybe they want a king bedded room. Do they belong to a loyalty program, etc. So we're able to get some customized fields, optional fields for each of the guests. Is the guest welcome? So you can certainly have a list of the non-welcome guests as well. We track a full set of guest history, both stay history and what we call object history, which would be like activity history or preferences, purchase history. So a full set of history gets tracked for each guest. Now here's just an example here for Malcolm. Each of the reservations where he stayed, including some other purchase history, in this case a fruit basket. Now admittedly you're not going to track who buys a fruit basket, but this is just sample data. This might be instead spa visits or golf or buying a certain type of wine or whatever. So you're able to track what the guest has done in your property in the past so that you can tailor a future experience to match that. You can imagine if you're able to market back to a guest and say, draw me a list of guests of everyone that stayed in my property from January to March and went to the spa. So you draw that list out using this history file. You send them an email message with a picture of a person on a treatment bed, and there's a click-through button to your website. Compelling pieces like that, when you do marketing, have phenomenally high click-through rates, in the 90, 95, 98% rate, because it's a memorable, pleasurable experience, and they click through to see what's going on. So very, very valuable information to keep on the history. So every time they've stayed, what property they stayed in, the actual reservation, the room, the spend, and everything else. So full set of history, and this data is also available inside the Sage CRM product for extended marketing. So as if the optional fields and the history wasn't enough, we're also able to track notes on each guest. So an unlimited amount of text can be keyed, and we can actually key a little story for a guest if that's what we want. So this can be a short story on the guest's preferences or whatever. Okay? We could make that a high priority, and we can save it. We can also, and you can see here it just comes right in. We can also have action items that we can assign a date and a staff member to, attach it to a given reservation. So we can track as much history as we like, and we can segment that history out to a staff group. So we could have food services notes, we can have sports activity notes, we could have medical history notes, all kinds of information about this guest. So once again, you can tailor the experience of the guest. And you're not limited to the amount of text you can enter. Each line has a limit, but you can enter as many lines as you want in. So the guest notes are notes that you keep on the guest. Guest messages are messages that you're going to deliver to the guest. We keep a full set of reservations for the guest, including the reservation status, so we can see canceled ones and checked out ones, and all the rest as we come down. So we keep a list of the reservations here, and if the folio is still on file, when we click on a reservation, we can actually view the folio down here for that reservation. This is different than history. This is coming from the reservation file. So if we purge reservation detail, this will disappear. The history is in a separate file. So even if you do purge your reservation file, the history will still be kept. And of course we keep credit cards on file, but we can see all we show in here is the masked credit card number, just the last 4 digits. The PCI, the Personal Card Institute, limits what we're allowed to show. At least they tell us what we should show, which is the last 4 digits now. And our credit cards are encrypted in the database, so that regular report tools or browse tools or anybody looking at the database cannot see the credit card numbers. At best, they'll see just the last 4 digits. And then we can see where that credit card is in use. It's in use on these reservations here. So if the guest says, I now have a new credit card number, you can actually go and find the reservations where that one is, and you can see that credit card is guaranteeing this set of reservations right here. So a very, very rich set of data that we're able to keep on each guest. All of this guest information, profile information, history information, notes and whatnot are available when you're entering a reservation as well. So here we are on a reservation, and we can see there's a little flag on the guest tab. We actually have 2 guests, so we're looking at Malcolm Amici's information. So we have his optional fields, we have his address information, optional fields, and those little drop downs we have. We have the same history appears here as we saw on the guest file. There's a little flag on the notes here that says there's a guest note that's marked as undelivered, which means undelivered in this case doesn't mean we're delivering it to the guest. It means there's an action that should be initiated on it. There's a message that's undelivered to the guest. There's a little flag there to show us that here's a message for this guest that's not delivered. And again, we get reservations. And this is the current folio we have on the guest. If there's multiple reservations outstanding, it'll show the folio for all the reservations for that guest. In this case here, there's only one that he's checked in on, so it shows here. So all this information, all this rich set of data for the guest, it's available, of course, in the Enter, Edit, Guest program, but it's also completely visible within the reservation program, because that's where you're going to be tailoring the offering based on the guest's preferences and his past history.